I'd like to call the Monday, September 18, 2017 Oakwood City Council meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me with the pledge to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please, Lori?
Mayor Duncan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Byington.
Here.
Mr. Stevens.
Here.
Mrs. Hilton.
Here.
Mr. Epley.
Here.
And may I have a report on the minutes of our August 21st regular executive and work sessions? Mrs. Hilton.
Yes, Your Honor, I've reviewed the minutes from all three of those meetings, and I found them to be correct and complete, and therefore I move that they be adopted as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So ordered. And under status reports, I have a report, a proclamation to recognize Constitution Week. Whereas September 17, 2017 marks the 230th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17 through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore, under the power vested in me, I, William D. Duncan, Mayor of the City of Oakwood, hereby proclaim the week of September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week. And we ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution that they had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. This is very important to me this year because I recently saw a news report where 2/3 or 60%, 60 to 65% of young people today can't name the three branches of government. They thought it was Republican, Democrat, and Independent. It's pretty pathetic, in my opinion, and so I challenge our schools to start teaching civics again. So with that, I'm done with my soapbox. We have another proclamation, but before we do that, I'm wondering if I could have Chief Bebris, and we have a guest, Chief Queen. Chief Queen is from the Miami Valley Fire District, which I think is jointly between Miamisburg and Miami Township. And Alex is our Public Safety Director. And if I could have Public Safety Officer Sarah Whitaker to come up to the podium, and I have a proclamation to read regarding something very special that our Public Safety Officer did. Whereas on July 19, 2017, Officer Sarah Whitaker was driving to work when she observed a person lying on the Miamisburg bike path with several individuals standing around. Officer Whitaker stopped. Witnesses stated that a 53-year-old gentleman who was riding his bicycle suddenly fell off his bike and onto the bike path. This was not an ordinary fall. The gentleman had just suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. Whereas Officer Whitaker recognized the event for what it actually was and immediately provided aid. Officer Whitaker began CPR, and upon arrival of a Miamisburg police officer, Officer Whitaker instructed another bystander to continue CPR while she received the automatic external defibrillator, an AED, from the marked patrol vehicle. Subsequently, Officer Whitaker used the AED to deliver a shock, attempting to restart his heart. The attempted cardiac conversion was initially unsuccessful, and CPR resumed. CPR continued and was in progress when the Miami Valley Fire District medic crew arrived. The responding paramedics attached the patient to their cardiac monitor and detected a viable heart rhythm. Additional life-saving measures continued, and the patient was rushed to Kettering Hospital. And whereas the City of Oakwood is pleased to relay that Officer Whitaker recently received an email from the gentleman's spouse who stated that her husband had been diagnosed with a rare heart rhythm disorder, but is nearing a full recovery. She added that her husband will soon be returning to work and his passion, cycling, at some point this fall. Whereas there is no doubt Officer Whitaker's quick recognition, immediate actions, and quality care played a significant role in this gentleman surviving this catastrophic event. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the City of Oakwood gives special thanks and appreciation to Public Safety Officer Sarah Whitaker for the life-saving actions she took on July 19, 2017, and for the great credit she brought upon herself, the Oakwood Public Safety Department, and the entire Oakwood community. And this proclamation has been signed by all members of City Council as well as our City Manager, Norbert Klopsch. Alex, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I would just like to ask Chief Queen if you'd like to say a few words. I know that some questions about the fire district have been relayed. Chief?
Great, thank you. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to be here. Again, I am Matthew Queen, the Fire Chief with Miami Valley Fire District, and just to give you kind of a snapshot of how the fire district kind of came about. We're about 5 years old now, and previously we were the Miami Township and the Miamisburg Fire Departments. And that started in about 2012. About 6 years prior to that, there was a study session started, and for 6 years they studied and researched the fire and EMS services in that area and how could we make them better and make them less cost effective. So in 2012, the fire district was established, and now we are 5 years old, and we are the third busiest fire department in Montgomery County now. We're just over 8,000 runs, just behind Kettering and Dayton.
Wow.
So we stay relatively busy, and I'm sure that when Sarah woke up that morning, she had no idea what she was going to get herself into the day. But that's how life is, and that's how the fire service is and the EMS service and law enforcement. You really never know what you're going to kind of run into as that day comes on, and she made the most of it, and I fully believe she was the reason that gentleman is here today and wanting to go back to cycling and so forth. So we were just, the moment I heard it, and I didn't even hear she worked for Oakwood. I just heard Sarah Whitaker saved a life. I'm like, all right, well, we got to do something. So that's how we started that whole process, and it comes out, well, she's a paramedic and she's a fire, but all right, it doesn't matter. We're still going to do something. So we were proud to have her and provide her with that the award, and we're just thankful for her to be there. And
Very good. Sarah, would you have anything you'd like to say to council?
Yeah, Chief Queen is right. I was driving into work, just coming in, like every other day, and didn't expect to have to jump into action, but we're always ready, and that's what we have the training for. So I really believe that God put me on that road when he did, and it's very humbling to be used like that and be able to use my skills and everything. And the biggest reward is just knowing that he has more time with his family, and the letter from his wife meant a lot. And he got to take his daughter to college, and just some special things. So that means a lot. And there was a team of us there that day. As was said, there were a couple other people that were also doing CPR, and the early CPR and the early defibrillation, really made a difference. So, and then when the medic crews got there, they took over and did their thing, and all the way to the hospital, and it just continued on from there. So this is really a team career, a team passion that we have. So I was really just neat to see that work out in a positive way at the end, and I just really appreciate the acknowledgement and the proclamation. It means a lot. So.
Well, thank you very much. Let me come down and hand it to you.
I just wanted to add one last thing, and that is that it's often said that when
someone is faced with a test or a trial, that's when you see their true nature and their character come out. And I think that that's what was demonstrated on that day. I mean, she wasn't on duty, she was on her way to work, but it shows the dedication and commitment that she has to the profession and the work that she does. And she brings that to work with her every day. And I'm just very proud that we can call her one of ours.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I know I think it was the 10th anniversary of September 11th when I got the opportunity to administer the oath of office for Sarah. And I seem to recall asking her, so where were you on September 11, 2001? And I think her answer was you were in 7th grade? Second period of your senior year. There you go. So that sort of aged me more than I've aged now since. So, but again, congratulations. It appears as though your family's here. Okay, and we thank you all for coming. This is just a great, one more example of why we have one of the best, public safety departments, in the area, if not the entire state. So thank you all for coming. Appreciate your support of Sarah. And thank you guys for coming as well.
Very proud.
We now have, Mr. Stevens has a status report. I'll turn it over to you, Councilmember Stevens.
Thank you, Mayor Duncan. Yeah, this is just an update on a project that we've been working on at the city. About 18 months ago, a group of Oakwood citizens, led by Mary Montgomery, came to the city and talked about a possibility of doing something at what is now called Skank Park. It's at the corner of Skank Avenue and Oakwood Avenue, on the way, just past 5 Points, on the way down the hill towards UD. It's on the right-hand side. They had mentioned that, there's no playgrounds on the north end of the city. And we looked into it and thought, this is something we can, research, and they're right. There really aren't any. The closest one would probably be Harmon School. So we looked into it, did a lot of research, worked with the citizens, and of course staff spent a lot of time on this. And what's been decided is we're going to actually put in some park improvements to the extent of 3 pieces of playground equipment, safety surface, fencing, sidewalks, some benches, and of course trash and recycling containers. And the nice thing about this project is that all improvements and all the equipment, playground equipment, everything, the fencing, will be made with recyclable materials. The total cost of the project is approximately $70,000, with $40,000 of the $70,000 coming from Montgomery County Solid Waste District in the form of a grant, $7,000 from private donations, $3,000 from the Oakwood Rotary Club, and then the city will contribute $20,000. Construction is going to begin in about 2 weeks, and they think the project should be completed late October, early November. At that time, once we get close to the end of the project, we're hoping to have a dedication ceremony, and we are going to actually rename the park Cook Park. And we are going to name the park after our former mayor, Judy Cook, for not only everything she's done for the city. She lived on the street for a long time. We thought it'd be a nice touch and a nice dedication to her for everything she's done. And of course, we'll get into all of the accolades and all the just everything she's done for the city over the past 20, 25 years at the dedication. It'll be out there to really, I'm not going to run through the long list, but we're very honored to name the park after her, a wonderful woman who's done so much for our city.
I concur. Thank you, and we'll have an update that we will announce publicly when that event's going to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
It'll be in the paper. We'll the register will have it. We'll put it out there in the paper and put it on our website. And we just don't have a date yet because construction is pending.
Correct. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that concludes our status report section. We do have a special visitor here this evening. We have Mr. Joe Braden from the Auditor of State's office. Welcome. If you could come down and speak to us, we look forward to hearing you.
Absolutely. It's my honor to be here tonight in the city of Oakwood. On behalf of Auditor of State Dave Yost, to present the Auditor of State Award for the 2016 fiscal year period. It's important to note that this puts the city of Oakwood in a very unique situation. The Auditor State's Office audits nearly 6,000 entities, and less than 10% of those entities are even eligible for this award. So with that being said, I always like to read through the criteria, what it takes to receive the award. Cindy's probably real familiar with it, but I will share with everyone else what it is. So bear with me through this. The entity must file their financial reports with the Auditor State within 150 days of fiscal year end, have a clean audit with no findings for recoveries or material citations, no material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, single audit findings, or any questioned costs. The entity's management letter must contain no comments related to ethics referrals, questioned costs less than $10,000, lack of timely report submissions, reconciliation issues, failure to obtain a timely single audit, findings for recovery less than $100, or public meetings or any public records issues. The entity shall have no other financial concerns. This award not only represents the hard work of every City of Oakwood employee who strives each day to achieve accounting excellence, I also want to recognize the council and the mayor for the excellent job they have done accounting for every dollar within the city's offices and departments. I especially want to recognize, and if you'd like to come up here, Cindy, I'd like to recognize Cindy Stafford, the finance director, for her outstanding leadership, her professionalism, and her commitment to fiscal integrity. Job well done, Cindy.
Thank you.
So, on behalf of Auditor State Dave Yost, I'd like to present the Ohio Auditor State Award.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And do you have a rebuttal?
I don't have a rebuttal, but I do accept this, again, as he said, on behalf of the staff of the City of Oakwood, along with the finance team. I mean, you know, our finance team dots the i's and crosses the t's, and as I told Norb, we do all the ticking and tying, but a lot of the heavy lifting is done throughout the city. So we're thankful, and we are glad that we can show to our residents that we do take very seriously every dollar we receive in revenues from services and from every tax dollar, and that we make sure that it is properly accounted for.
Thank you. And I know that, you know, my real job is I'm a CPA, so I'm familiar with how hard it is to obtain this award. I'm also understand that your materiality limits are much lower than most CPA firms, and so. But when you get down to it, it goes back to the fundamental, what is the tone at the top? And this council, as well as councils that have preceded it, as well as, you know, every one of our department heads, you know, that are supervised by Norb, you know, we take seriously safeguarding taxpayer monies and being open and transparent. And so please let Mr. Yost know that we really appreciate you being able to come down and giving this award to Cindy and her staff because they deserve it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I just for the record, I met Auditor Yost, and he gave me a koozie, and it said "Peace, Love, Skinny Government" on it. Thank you very much for coming. All right. That concludes maybe it includes our visitors. Cindy's husband may want to give a report. All right. So hearing no other visitors wishing to address council, we will move on to legislation. And Mr. Councilmember Stevens has an ordinance to accept a dedication of a right-of-way.
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance to accept the dedication of a street right-of-way for certain cul-de-sacs in the street known as Accent Circle. This is an ordinance that relates to the Point Oakwood settlement agreement that was approved by council on March 20th, 2017, and adopted by the Montgomery County Common Pleas Court on March 21st, 2017. Almost all of the paved roadways in the Point Oakwood development are owned by the city as public right-of-way. However, 4 small cul-de-sacs and Accent Circle are privately owned by Oakwood Investment Group. As part of the settlement agreement, OIG agreed to install the final course of asphalt on all streets in the development and then to dedicate the 4 cul-de-sacs and Accent Circle to the to the city as public right-of-way. The paving work was completed a few weeks ago, and OIG has delivered a deed to the city attorney to dedicate the cul-de-sacs and accent circle for public use. This ordinance will formally accept the right-of-way dedication and authorize the city attorney to record the deed. And this is the first reading of this ordinance, and I move that a council waive the second reading and adopt the ordinance this evening.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any other discussion for Councilmember Stevens?
No.
Hearing none. Lori, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, I have a resolution approving existing property tax amounts and rates, and Vice Mayor Byington will introduce that.
Yes, Your Honor. As you mentioned, this is a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. Each tax year, the Montgomery County Budget Commission is required to certify its determination of the millage rates and amounts the city will receive from its existing property tax levies. For 2017 and 18, the Budget Commission has determined that Oakwood will receive $1,143,937 from inside millage and $1,516,595 from the outside millage tax levies, which is consistent with our city's projections. This is our annual resolution to accept the county's determination, and I make a motion that council adopt this resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions for Vice Mayor Byington? Hearing none. Lori, would you call the roll?
Mayor Duncan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Byington?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Hilton?
Yes.
Mr. Epley?
Yes.
Thank you. And then we also have an ordinance to clarify the process for implementing temporary traffic control devices. Councilmember Stevens.
An ordinance to amend existing Section 305.04 effective date of regulations of the Oakwood Traffic Code to clarify the process for implementing temporary traffic control measures. Under Sections 305.03 and .04 of the Traffic Code, the city manager has authority to adopt traffic regulations throughout the city. This authority encompasses a wide range of traffic decisions, including the placement of stop signs, time-limited parking zones, road closures, and other things. The city's historical practice of adopting these regulations generally involves publishing them in a book of traffic regulations and posting signs as appropriate. However, we have only published those regulations that are intended to be permanent. Temporary regulations, such as the closure of a street for a block party or prohibiting left turns in the area of an ongoing construction project, are appropriately signed but are not recorded in the traffic regulations book. While this has been the city's practice, it is not expressly stated as such in Section 305.04. The city has not experienced any legal difficulties due to the current wording, but the city attorney has recommended that council adjust the language to clarify that temporary regulations need not be recorded in the traffic regulations book. This is the first reading of the ordinance, so I make no motion at this time.
Thank you, Councilmember Stevens. We will deal with that at our next meeting on October 2nd. That concludes our legislation. As we move on to our staff report, we have our Public Safety Department and Chief Bebris. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening. We seem to be having a little trouble with the projector that was working earlier.
See, we can see it on our
You can
screens
see it?
here. We
Yes.
can see it. Is there? Can you see it? Well, we can't see it behind us. So the people at home cannot see this. Is that correct?
I would say probably not. But as long as you can see it, we'll proceed, I guess.
Okay.
All right, well, it worked earlier. But we'll not delay this any further. We'll just move along. So we'll start with crime trends, and you can't see it. Okay. Oh, it is coming. Okay. Well, it's decided to come on now, so.
Thank you very much.
His mere presence.
Yes, we have technicians on call. Thank you.
As you know, one of the more important things, one of the focal points here in Oakwood is our focus on property crimes, in particular burglaries and thefts. Those are some of our highest categories of crime that do occur in Oakwood, and tracking those and working on those and trying to clear those cases is very important to the department, as is to the residents. And you can see that this is year-to-date, 2016 to 2017. We had 8 burglaries, 2016 year-to-date, and we had 1 so far this year. Thefts is showing also a decline, a statistically significant decline from 2016 to 2017. As you can see that there were 93 thefts in 2016 and 64 thefts thus far in 2017. A lot of that is through aggressive patrol. Our officers are out there aggressively patrolling, not just on our streets for traffic, but in the nighttime hours on the side streets and the plats and the alleys, doing FIs on individuals, really just trying to make it an unwelcoming place for those that would come into town and commit crime. So I think you can see their efforts, their presence, their visibility, all of those things coming together are borne out in the statistics of the crimes that do occur. As you also know, the Schroyer Road project is well underway, and for the people at home that may not be completely familiar with it and the safety department's role in this, over the course of about a 6-month period in 2015 to early 2016, we did a study on Schroyer Road. The purpose of the study was to assess accident history, citations, overall safety of the corridor. The study was performed by the engineering firm of Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley, and identified some significant safety problems and recommended countermeasures to address these concerns. Among those, if you remember, were some rear-end accidents that was significantly statistically outside the bounds of what would be expected on that type of roadway, some turning, movement crashes, as well as the speed of the roadway being above the 85th percentile for that construction of road. So you can see we had the high crash rates, rear-end crashes, angle crashes, and left turn crashes, lack of safe pedestrian crossings, and excessive vehicle speeds. Countermeasures were recommended to reduce the accidents, to slow the traffic, provide safer pedestrian crossings, and improve the bikeway north of Delwood, provide bike lanes on the roadway, as well as improve the aesthetics and streetscape and give it more of a residential Oakwood feel to it rather than sort of the highway that it looks like in the present time. And you can see in those artist renderings the plan that was developed through the engineering was the reduction from 2 lanes each direction, north and south, to 1 lane each direction with the bike path and the green space median in the middle of the boulevard style in the middle. If anybody's been out there in the past month and a half to 2 months, you'll know that the project is well underway and with the anticipated completion date in October. This has been a tremendous undertaking by everybody in the safety department. I'd like to give a special recognition to Captain Mike Jones, who can't be here tonight because he's taking care of another safety department issue. But we've had officers out on that roadway almost continuously, in particular during times of rush hour, morning and evening. Captain Jones has been on this when we've had to modify the approach and the plan, when we've noticed some things have worked in a certain way and other things haven't worked in a way that we thought they would. He's been right on top of it, and the officers have also been very responsive to the needs in his direction as well. So we're very much not just looking forward to this project being finished because I think it'll be a nice addition to the city, but we're also looking forward to it because it's been a pretty major undertaking on a daily basis and taking away from some of the other things that we do as well, making the officers really be dedicated and committed to this. So we're looking forward to this being finished very shortly. Another thing that is up and running is the prescription drug drop-off box that went into operation several weeks ago. The box does accept pills and patches, no liquids or needles. If people are listening at home, we do have found out that the crime lab, they can call Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and they'll take some of the items that we can't accept here that may have either liquid or a biohazard or a needle or something like that that we wouldn't be able to take. They will take those down there. And it's emptied on an almost daily basis. We have 2 officers, usually Mike Jones and the detective. However, if they're not available, we do have other people that can take care of this. We weigh everything that comes out of it, it's inventory, and then when we take it for destruction, we'll also weigh it on the way out to ensure the integrity of the system as it exists and keep an inventory of the product that was dropped off there. I can tell you that box gets used every day. They empty that, and quite a number of items have been taken out of there. So it's all good, as that's items that aren't either accumulating in people's homes, being available for theft or misuse, or being flushed down the toilet and going into the waterways and the ecosystem. So all very, very positive outcomes from this item in the city. Also give you a quick update on the radio cog, the Council of Governments group. We are a participant in the radio group that administers the radio network that our safety officers and the radios in the vehicles use to communicate. It's a county-wide system, and it's part of the larger statewide MARC system. And we pay a fee as a user of that for each radio on the system that we subscribe to. So currently that fee is set at $20 per radio per month. Previously, before this system was in existence, we had contracted with the city of Dayton and used the Dayton radio network. When this new network came about to improve and upgrade the county communications from the old analog system that was in existence to the digital standard, as the old analog equipment was rapidly approaching its end of useful life, the county and the city of Dayton got together and made one county-wide system for all users and subscribers. So I will say that it's a very, very busy system. We go to meetings on a quarterly basis. They give out some statistics, and sometimes you'll see some of those statistics. I mean, they had one day during the storm period towards the beginning of the spring season, and in a 1 hour period they had more than 75,000 radio transactions.
Wow.
And more than 99.5% of those went in on the radio on the first time someone pushed the button to use it. So it's a very robust system, and it's more than adequate for anything we would need here in Oakwood, and is serving us well. Would like to talk about a couple of cases of note. Usually I'm able to come to give you some good news and some positive news about things that have happened and crimes that have been solved. This is one occurrence. I'm not going to be able to do that. It might seem like a small thing to some people, but we're still dealing with this sign damage. It's been going on since about 2015. We're now at approximately 40 signs that have been damaged over that time. This has cost the city thousands of dollars in sign replacement, labor, to remount them. Obviously, it makes the city look bad, when someone gets up on Saturday or Sunday morning and sees that and they're driving down the street. We've had detectives involved with trying to really work a number of angles, and have gone even so far as to offer a $1,000 reward, which is still out there for any information leading to the arrest of an individual or individuals responsible for this. I know that this is going to continue to be something that the detective section focuses on. and spends time on, as well as our officers out on predominantly the weekend nights when this occurs, but keeping their eyes open, and someday they'll be caught. I'm quite confident of that. Another case of note, we don't usually have a lot of violent crime here in the city of Oakwood, but back last May, just after 8 o'clock p.m., the CVS pharmacy was robbed by two males. One suspect passed a note to one of the workers at the pharmacy desk indicating it was a robbery and to give up pain prescription medications. The employee called 911. It sort of startled the suspects while they were still there, and they fled without actually obtaining anything or further incident. But one of the good things that we had is we had some pretty high quality video pictures of this, and what I'm using this as an example of is this is an example of our detectives going out and working with surrounding agencies and jurisdictions, other municipalities such as Kettering and Dayton, but also our federal partners, and this would include the FBI in this particular case. These people were part of a major prescription theft ring. That they would be committing robberies in pharmacies all across the Miami Valley. And there was eventually identified a total number of 8 people, but the 2 men that you saw in the picture there were almost immediately identified, and they were charged and federally indicted for attempted interference with commerce by threat or violence under federal statutes, and they'll be very likely looking at some significant federal penitentiary time. And the rest of the 8 people will also be looking at similar charges, including conspiracy charges. So you can see that, while stuff does not often happen here in Oakwood, sometimes it is serious, but we do have the capability of working on those type of things, bringing these cases to a resolution, and seeing that the proper thing is done in the end. So with that being said, that's the end of my specific presentation. I'd just like to mention a couple of last things. I know that City Manager Norb has advised you that I'm going to be leaving you. I'm going to be leaving in November. In fact, my last day will be November 10th. Towards the beginning of the summer, I did some pretty serious thinking. I have more than 29 years. I have actually 29 years and 9 months as of last week of doing this job, and had really thought I wanted to go and do something different. My wife and I, in fact, had gone and made several trips out east, had sort of decided that we were going to purchase an inn in Vermont, had laid the groundwork for that when I got a phone call, sort of out of the blue, but I had been looking around to stay involved with the police chief business and as a sort of part-time thing, and I got a call from a friend of mine who is in charge of a nonprofit who works out of 2 universities and has offered me a position to transition out as a part-time, and I'm going to be doing outreach work for them to basically troubled departments. It's mostly DOJ work, grant work, places that are under federal consent decree, are being sued, or it's work where they go out and send someone who is a chief, retired chief, former chief, very rarely an active chief, but goes and looks at departments, tries to work with them to identify what some of their problems and issues are, develops a training program for them, and then goes back out and delivers that. It's mostly poor departments, it's mostly rural departments, a lot of tribal nations, especially out west. I've been very blessed here in Oakwood. If there's a spectrum of law enforcement agencies and the best is down here, we're definitely down here on this end. And there's a whole bunch of people that are down on this end. And I'm really looking forward to the challenge of trying to bring some of these people from here, over to where I've been. And in the meantime, it'll give me an opportunity to look around, and when I find that right place to buy, because I will be doing most of this work out of my house, the development of the programs. Now, the delivery of them, you travel all over the country to do that, but I've already taught to them. Starting the first year, I'll be developing for one of the tribes, the tribal police departments out west. I'll be developing a program for them on policy and procedure development for small agencies. And in fact, the director called me today and asked if I would be willing to help them try and develop some of their programs for alternate delivery, so over the internet, webinars, things of that nature, that they really want to try and outreach to some of those really, really rural areas where it's difficult for maybe if you have a two-man department. I mean, you can't take 2 days to go to a training, but if you could deliver that to them in a different setting, I think it'll be a change, but after I'll be 1 month short of 30 years of doing this, and I'm looking forward to having that break and that change. And I've had very good years here in Oakwood. It's probably tied for my favorite job that I've ever had. My first time in Milwaukee and my assignment there, and the friendships I developed there are probably tied with this, but it was different times then, and I was in a different place, and this has been very good. I've had great people to work for. I've had great people to work for on councils here over the years, and I've had great people in the department. And that'll bring me to my last thing that I'd just like to say, and that is that I know that Norb has made a decision for my replacement, and I couldn't tell you how proud I was that when he announced that Captain Alan Hill, come on up.
He's still your boss, I guess, huh?
He'll be taking over, and he'll be assuming the duties as chief on the 10th of November. You know, when Alan came, it was July of '07. We were doing our interviews in May and June, and I remember having a discussion with Randy Baldridge, who was captain then, and both of us looked at each other and said, man, I'm glad I'm not coming up against him, because he knows his stuff. He's sharp. He was probably the best interview I ever had in my stint as chief, and by far distinguished himself to anybody else that was in that group. And in his years that he's been here as an officer, as a detective, as captain, he's produced nothing but top shelf work, and I think that this department is going to be in good hands going forward, and I just want to congratulate him for it wasn't given to him. He earned every bit of it, and I'm sure he'll do well for you. But with that, I bid you goodbye in 2 months or so, and turn it over to
Would you like to address council?
I don't know what you call him, chief in waiting.
Chief-elect.
I'd like to begin by thanking you, Mr. Mayor, council, Mr. Klops, Mr. Weiskircher, for your faith and confidence in me by affording me the opportunity to serve as the next director of public safety. It's truly humbling, and I'm extremely appreciative of being given this opportunity. And I remind myself, we have historical framings as you walk down the hallway of the Safety Department building. Come November 10th, I will only be the 7th person since 1955 to be selected to serve in this capacity. As I go forward, that's the only fact that I need to remind myself of truly what a great opportunity I'm being given here. And as we go forward under my leadership, through professionalism, commitment, and dedication, we will continue to provide police, fire, and EMS services at the highest level. I'm confident of that. We have an outstanding group of men and women. I'm very excited for the future of our organization and for those that are involved in it, and it's my challenge to bring the best out in each and every one of them. In closing, I've been pretty fortunate in the 20-year career that I've had in law enforcement to be given opportunities. And 6.5 years ago, Chief Beveridge gave me an opportunity to be promoted that he didn't have to give me. Since that day, I recognize part of the reason why I stand here today is because of the opportunity that Chief Beveridge gave me. I want to publicly say thank you. I know others are involved in that decision as well. I want to thank you for your guidance. You took a chance on me 10 years ago to hire me, and we're going to miss you. We wish you the best going forward, and thank you for everything you've done for the organization. And with that, again, I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for the chief or the incoming chief?
I do have a question, but it sort of pales in comparison to what just happened. All right, the prescription drop-off box, that's awesome. Are there any concerns about privacy? Because they have our names on them, right? Don't they? I mean, I've never really been a big...
The instructions that are on there, we do ask that you take when people drop stuff off, that it goes into the baggies out there, and that the people take their bottles with them. That would have their personal information and the labeling and stuff, and then they can dispose of those, the bottles themselves, the empty bottles, in an appropriate way to destroy that information.
Awesome. Thanks.
I know, Chief, on a lighter note also, I know when we started the Schroyer Road project, we were very concerned about, vigorous enforcement of the lower speed limits on Schroyer as well as Acorn and Hathaway. And I want to commend your entire department, for, in fact, having vigorous enforcement. We've been seeing the statistics, and not everyone that gets stopped gets a citation. Many of them get warnings, but the fact of the matter is we have not seen an abundance of speeding on Hathaway or Delane or Acorn, for that matter, and even Schroyer Road. I try to go up and down it a couple times just to see what's going on, and by and large, most people are going 25 miles an hour. So we appreciate the entire department, stepping up to that, because it has been, in fact, vigorous enforcement. But to you, for you, it is bittersweet that you're leaving us, but I just want to say that when you came here, the department we've had historical labor issues here. We haven't had serious labor issues, and I believe since you've been here, and I believe it's because of your management style, as well as the fact that you have managed to attract and retain just an outstanding group of officers. And, we've said that on this council, for several years, that this is probably the best group of PSOs that, the city has probably ever had. And that clearly has to do with your leadership and the captains as well, because, they're involved in that process as well. And I'm very excited for you. I think you've done an outstanding job here at Oakwood. And I remember when you were the detective and cracked probably the biggest theft ring of all time. It was one guy, but you got him, and he's in jail. So we appreciate that. And to end on a lighter note, with these crime stats we've seen, he's sort of set a pretty high bar for you now. But we will not give him total credit for that. We'll give the entire department credit for that.
There's 2 burglaries next year. It's a 100% increase.
That's right. That's right.
Easy now. We're not done with 17 yet. So come on now. Hey, Mayor, I will say this. Alex, thank you for everything you've done for all these years. We really appreciate your service. We wish you all the best. We really do. Whether you're out east, you're working out of your house, all these different plans you have, seriously, we wish you all the best. And Alan, we comment all the time about how great our police and fire and EMS department is. So now you got to work, because I'm telling you, that's one of our go-to lines. People start talking to us, we say there is no other force in town that's as good as ours. So just keep up the tradition and keep doing what we've been doing, because we are very proud of our safety department here in Oakwood. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And if you could send us some reports on how you're dealing with the tribes out there, I just have an interest in that. That would be interesting.
When I first talked to the person that is going to be sort of overseeing what I do, I had actually, in fact, worked for Jim a number of years ago. He was an assistant chief in Milwaukee. He's actually also a full-blooded tribal member himself, one of the bands in Minnesota. And he was telling me about how when he went to deliver one of the programs that he had developed for this particular tribe out in Arizona, you travel on a stipend, you get an account, you can stay at a hotel or motel or anything. Well, the town was so small, they didn't even have a motel, and he had to stay at the chief's house.
Oh, my gosh.
So, but he said it was good times. And, it'll be definitely different.
Yeah.
It'll be different challenges, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think change is good for everybody at times, and I think this will be good for everybody here. And it'll give Alan an opportunity to do some things he's always wanted to do, and I think the department will continue to grow and be a good place.
Well, thank you. Good luck and Godspeed.
Yes, good luck to both of you.
All right.
Thank you.
So with that, it's now time for our city manager report. Can you beat that?
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I'm gonna just piggyback on that a little bit and say that, by my math, we've got 6 or 7 more weeks with Alex here, and you can see by the way the two have interacted tonight that they have an outstanding relationship, professionally, personally, and in a special department like we have here in Oakwood, a transition like this is so critically important on how it all unfolds. And I think they're going to work together wonderfully over the next, again, 6, 7 weeks to make this transition smooth. And all of the officers have been informed, obviously, of this change, and it's been well received. And we'll have some work to do. And of course, Jay's going to get pulled into this and backfilling positions and. But I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to come out at the end doing very well. And I'm going to wait until November 6th, here in 2 months, to share some comments about Alex, because we still have him for 6 or 7 more weeks. So stay tuned for that.
All right.
On the quick comment on the Shore Road project, I from my seat, very happy with how it's unfolding, both as manager and as engineer. And frankly, again, it's a testament to all the folks involved, of course, the Public Safety Department in large part, but also the Public Works Department, and specifically Dave Shuey. Dave is our streets foreman, and he's involved every day, every hour of every day, some days, in decision-making out there, and making sure that every detail is handled properly. The right work is done at the right locations, elevations, draining patterns, and you name it. There's a lot of detail out there. It's much more extensive and complicated than the typical kind of roadway project that we're used to doing here. As you're well aware, normally we're taking off pavement, replacing pavement in place with maybe some minor adjustments. Here, it's an altogether different roadway that we're constructing, and again, Dave is doing a fabulous job for us. Secondly, I've mentioned a couple times recently about work on Ridgeway Road, and it is starting to wind down. We're kind of on the far south end now with doing concrete street repair, but that is still ongoing and will continue for a few more weeks. Related to our section of Ridgeway is a study underway by the city of Kettering. This is on the Ridgeway Road Bridge that crosses Dorothy Lane. The city of Kettering is studying that bridge. It's approaching, I think, 50 years in place, and it needs to be replaced sometime in the next few years. And Kettering is doing a large community survey to get some information about how that bridge is used by folks for commuting to and from work, for pedestrian purposes, bicycle riding, what have you. And they approached us a few months ago about including a significant portion of the city of Oakwood in this opinion gathering. And of course, we supported that. And here in the near future, mailings will go out to a large area in Kettering around that section where the bridge is. But in Oakwood, all the way from the Hills and Dales Park up to Park Road, east to Far Hills Avenue, and then south to Kettering, basically to Dorothy Lane. That large square of property in Oakwood, why every Oakwood resident that lives there will get a mailing, and with that, they'll be referred to a website where they can log in and render their opinion on how they use the bridge. And there's some different ideas on how to replace that thing, and so we'd welcome, all of our citizens in that part of Oakwood to log in and give their opinion. Next, if you haven't noticed, some of the leaves are starting to fall, and I think with the rain this evening, probably in the next few days, a lot of other leaves are going to fall. And our official 10-week collection season starts on Monday, October 16th, so we're just about a month away. And it's, again, every 2 weeks we pass every neighborhood, and so we'll collect leaves up until the third week in December. And this is the one time of the year when we ask residents to push debris into the gutter, and that's just the leaves. No branches, no bags, no Halloween decoration, none of that stuff, just leaves, and we pick those up and have them processed into new mulch. We're working aggressively on the 2018 city budget. As you know, we met with the budget committee last week, and it's a very large committee, and we had a great turnout. 20 Oakwood residents came and sat in the council chamber here and gave us some good input on that budget. So that's well underway. We meet again with the committee in mid-October. And finally, my hat's off to Cindy Stafford as well and her staff for everything they do day in and day out. And I can tell you that they are very, very nitpicky and very, very careful about every detail. And obviously, by the results of the audit, nothing gets by them. So they do an outstanding job for the city. And for me, it's, Cindy's office is right next to mine, so I walk by it every day, and I see her with her 2 computer monitors. I think every CPA, because I know, Mayor, you have 2 monitors as well.
I have 3. I have 2 also.
Okay, lawyers have them too, but with the spreadsheets, and I mean, it's an interesting business, and you have to have the right person in the job of, dealing with all that detail, and we certainly have that in Cindy. So thank you, Cindy, for all your efforts. That's all I have.
All right, any questions or comments for the city manager?
Yeah, Mr. Klopsch, I'm always interested in our cost-saving measures in the city. Can you comment quickly on our, how we save money on the fill dirt from Lane Stadium? And it was held for a while at Irving Field, and you can discuss it a little quick.
Sure. I guess this takes us back to probably last October, November, almost a year ago, when the work at Lane Stadium was well underway, and the excavating for all the work taking place there, and a mountain of soil started to accumulate. And as we were looking at that, we realized that this was the finest topsoil you can get. In fact, much better, any horticulturist would tell you, than the quote-unquote processed topsoil that you can buy from local gravel companies. It's just natural, it's riverbed topsoil, and so we at the course of the time, we're thinking about the Shore Road project and the construction of these 16 raised medians where pavement used to be, and the fact that we would like to eventually see trees planted there and perhaps some other plantings, and what better place to repurpose that topsoil than on the Shore Road project. So took a bit of effort and a few days with big trucks and front end loaders, but we moved what ended up being about 1,200 tons or 1,200 cubic yards of topsoil. Most of it was placed down at Irving Field. Some of it was put at the Public Works Yard. And so in the bidding documents for the Shore Road project, while we alerted the bidders that we were making available the material, and all they had to give us a price for was to move it from Irving to each of the 16 center medians. So we ran the calculations and built a big mountain at Irving, and just recently moved about 95% of that. There's a little bit left to go once the curbs are built, but I think our calculation is spot on in terms of the volume there. And
did we have an approximate savings amount?
I think we saved $15,000, maybe $20,000 by doing that. So,
recycling dirt.
Recycling dirt,
Excellent.
and again,
Excellent.
at the end of the day, we have better topsoil there than we otherwise could have had. And we also, knowing that we had such a large volume available, we went probably a little deeper than you might otherwise in terms of excavating to give good soil. So we went 30 inches down. So any tree that's planted there, will be happy for a while, as the roots start to go down before they hit the material down below. So
Excellent.
that worked out very well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else for the city manager? All right, hearing none, it's time for council comments. Councilmember Epley.
Thank you, Mayor, but this evening I have no comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Hilton.
Your Honor, I have no comments this evening.
Councilmember Stevens.
None this evening.
Vice Mayor Byington.
Ditto.
Wow.
We've already said everything we've wanted to
That's
say.
But who is the famous politician that everything's been said, but not everyone has said it?
Bill Clinton.
That would be Bill Clinton. I have no comments as well. So with that, our next meeting is going to be Monday, October 2nd, 2017. This meeting is adjourned.